what if everything you've been told about being a good person is actually making you weak? We grow up thinking virtue means obedience, but German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche asked, what if those virtues are just ways to keep you quiet? Was he suggesting that playing by the rules makes you weak? Let's find out. Nietzsche understood something most people don't like to admit. People don't cling to rules because they're strong. They cling to them because they're scared. Because rules aren't designed to help you become extraordinary. They're designed to keep everyone the same. In Twilight of the Idols, he wrote, "What destroys a man more quickly than to work, think, and feel without inner necessity, without any deep personal desire, without pleasure, as a mere automation of duty?" He believed you had to tear away the parts of yourself that were given to you without your consent. That means religion, culture, even language. These can all become invisible cages if you accept them blindly. He didn't want you to just break the rules for the sake of rebellion. He wanted you to ask where they came from and whether they served your life or suffocate it. In On the Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche talks about this as master morality, a worldview that starts from strength, not weakness. It defines good as whatever enhances life: power, creativity, courage, ambition. In contrast, slave morality comes from resentment. It redefines good as obedience and evil as power. Not because it's true, but because it helps the powerless feel better about being powerless. Nietzsche studied the lives of the greatest creators, thinkers, warriors, and rebels. And he noticed something. None of them waited for someone to tell them what to believe. They didn't ask for permission. They didn't ask if it was okay to think differently. They just did. That's what separated them from the crowd. Now, compare that with what Nietzsche called slave morality. This didn't come from strength, it came from weakness, from fear, from people who felt powerless, so they rewrote the rules to make their condition seem noble. They said that humility was strength, that suffering made you holy. But Nietzsche didn't buy it. He believed these weren't moral insights, they were survival tactics. And to be clear, Nietzsche didn't blame people for feeling weak. He wasn't mocking pain. What he criticized was settling, worshipping helplessness instead of fighting to grow out of it. To him, everyone has the potential to rise, but only if they stop glorifying their chains. And how do you do that? You start by stepping outside the rules. Not recklessly, not just for the sake of rebellion, but with purpose, with clarity. You look at the rules and ask, who made these? Why? And do they help me become who I want to be? Or do they hold me back? Nietzsche understood something most people ignore. Rules are never just rules. They always come with a story, a motive, a hand behind the curtain. Every commandment, every tradition, every law, it all reflects the priorities of whoever wrote it. Many rules are designed to maintain order, not to help you grow. Nietzsche believed that's fine if you recognize it and decide for yourself whether to follow them or not. This is what Nietzsche saw when he looked at traditional morality, especially the kind passed down through religion. He didn't see eternal truths, he saw tools, systems built to pacify, to flatten, to keep people in line by calling it righteousness. That's what he meant when he said, God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. It wasn't just about religion dying, it was about the collapse of a whole system of meaning built on divine command, and Nietzsche knew what would follow: confusion, fear, and the desperate search for new foundations. It was a warning, a signal that the old scaffolding, the borrowed structure of right and wrong, was falling apart. The commandments no longer held divine weight. Without God, morality no longer had a guaranteed foundation. Nietzsche from the Gay Science. And what's left? You. No fallback, no divine checklist, just freedom. But here's the part no one wants to hear. Freedom is scary. It leaves you exposed. And most people, they panic. They reach for anything that brings comfort, old habits, old beliefs, anything that saves them from the burden of choosing. Nietzsche watched this happening in his own time. And he wasn't angry about politics or religion, not exactly. He saw people becoming smaller out of fear of taking full responsibility for their existence. They weren't turning into monsters, they were fading into ghosts. That's why Nietzsche imagined something radically different. He called it the Übermensch, or the Overman in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. The Übermensch isn't an end goal, but a symbol of what humanity could become, someone who creates values, not inherits them. He doesn't beg for comfort, he welcomes challenges. Nietzsche believed that to become the Overman, you had to live a life so deliberate, so deeply yours, that you're not just surviving your life, but affirming it. Nietzsche wasn't telling you to arrive there, he was daring you to begin. And it means standing alone, not because you enjoy loneliness, but because truth lives in solitude. It means enduring rejection, not because you're callous, but because integrity matters more than popularity. It means walking into fire, not because you're fearless, but because you know what's on the other side, transformation. And Nietzsche didn't sugarcoat the pain that transformation requires. He famously wrote, "To those human beings who are of any concern to me, I wish suffering, desolation, sickness, ill-treatment, and indignities." Not out of cruelty, but out of faith. Faith that through that trial they would become someone new. Pain to Nietzsche was not the enemy. It was the test, the purifier, the training ground for confidence, not the fake kind that comes from applause, but the unshakable kind that comes from enduring, from standing firm when everything else shakes, from knowing you've met yourself in your darkest hour and didn't flinch. This is where Nietzsche diverged sharply from modern psychology, modern education, even modern parenting. Today, we're often taught to protect ourselves from pain, to manage discomfort, to avoid failure. But Nietzsche changed that completely. He said, seek out challenge, seek out rejection, seek out the edges of your comfort, because that's where your real power begins. Because the human soul, Nietzsche believed, was never meant to be tame. He wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." It was meant to wrestle with the impossible. It was meant to shatter itself against the unknown, to rebuild itself in fire and to rise, not as a copy of someone else, but as a singular force. In The Antichrist, Nietzsche called pity the most dangerous of all emotions, because it glorifies weakness instead of overcoming it. He saw a culture increasingly intoxicated by pity, mistaking it for compassion. To Nietzsche, that was spiritual death, because confidence can't grow in the pity of others. It grows in resistance, in confrontation, in friction, in risk. It grows when you take full ownership of your life, not just the good, but the brutal too. It grows when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How will I use this?" He wrote, "What if someday or night a demon were to steal after you into your loneliest loneliness and say to you, 'This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more.'" This mindset led Nietzsche to his most extreme thought experiment, eternal recurrence. He asked, what if every moment in your life had to be repeated endlessly, exactly the same way? Because if you wouldn't live your life again exactly as it is, what does that say about how you're living it now? This, Nietzsche said, is the ultimate measure of authenticity. Maybe you're living for approval, not meaning. And if so, the path forward is clear. Take control of your own narrative. That's what Nietzsche wanted for you. Not comfort, not security, not even happiness, but power. The power to choose your life so deliberately, so intensely that you would do it again and again and again, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. So if you've been waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to dream bigger, to take the leap, to stop apologizing, stop waiting. You don't need permission, you need fire. You need the kind of fire that doesn't beg to be seen, but burns no matter who's watching. The kind that doesn't dim to make others comfortable. The kind that doesn't hide behind rules, but forges its own path through them. You don't need borrowed morals to live fully. You need what Nietzsche called A why strong enough to bear any how. So now the question is yours to answer. What rules are you still following that were never meant for you? And when will you stop letting them decide who you get to be? Because confidence doesn't come from the world's approval. It comes from your refusal to ask for it. It comes from standing at the edge of the unknown and stepping forward anyway. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to explore more thought-provoking content on our channel. Like and share to keep the conversation going. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on our future videos. See you next time!